Hello and welcome to Newscentre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Swedish defence company Saab has become the first foreign company to receive 100% foreign direct investment in India's defence projects. The company will set up a rocket manufacturing facility in India and production will begin soon. The FDI proposal, worth reportedly 500 crore rupees, was approved in October last year. I caught up with Mats Palmberg, Chairman and Managing Director at Saab India, and began by asking him about the impact of the FDI approval for the Carl Gustaf systems.
First of all, of course, we are extremely happy that we are in that situation now, and this is a step in our development as being more and more committed to the Make in India policy, and so. This is really good news, and I'm really looking forward to together with my colleagues to develop this into and take it to the next steps.
Right. How long did this entire process take to get this FDI approval?
Well, I think it varies from time to time, but approximately it takes 3 to 6 months to get it done. But then, of course, there is internal work and so forth as well. And then, of course, there is a process of getting everything in place to be able to operate from the company. But regardless of that, it's an approval process of about a half a year.
Okay, so it's a process of about half a year to get this FDI approval. But what I would like to ask you, does this mean you have received a firm contract from the government to make these rifles? And if so, what is the size of the order?
Carl Gustaf is a well-established product in the Indian Army in previous versions and different ammunition styles for many, many years. We see this as a next natural step for us, and given all the ambitions around Make in India, for us it was a natural step to take this forward and over time start to produce locally in India for India as well as for the export market. But currently we need to establish the facility, and then we based on history, I will say that we are reasonably confident that there will be a need for additional weapons and M4s to replace the existing inventory of the older version over time.
Right. So for the moment, you're saying you haven't got approval, but you're expecting a government contract on the same.
For the time being, we haven't got a contract since this was announced. No, we have not.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, so that's fine.
Okay, and what will be the initial commitment that you would be making as part of this project, the investment that you would be making?
At this stage, we prefer not to comment on the investment, but of course we will build a new company, we will build a new facility and whatnot. But the figures as such, I'm not prepared to disclose.
Okay, but irrespective of whether you get a government contract or not, will manufacturing begin next year? Is that the plan?
Manufacturing will begin as soon as we have everything in place, including the facility. And I don't want to speculate in timings, etc. But it's a process that we have already launched, and it's a process that will continue. And as soon as we are ready, we will be able to deliver.
Right. Have you zeroed in on a location? Has a site been identified for setting up of this manufacturing facility?
Yes, we have evaluated, and we are evaluating the different options. We have homed in on a specific location, but I will not divulge on that either, as not everything is finalized as of this stage.
Right. Am I right to assume that the start of manufacturing operations is contingent on getting an order from the Indian government, from one of the forces?
No, wouldn't say so, because we are doing this both for of course, mainly the main reason is, of course, the need from the Indian armed forces, which we know is there. But there are also opportunities elsewhere in the world that we are. We are selling this Carl-Gustaf system all over the world. So there might be other opportunities as well. But of course, having an order to launch the production from the Indian Army in this case would be extremely important. Yes.
Right. The other thing that I'd like to ask you, so you're considering exporting from India as well?
Yes, we are. We will see this as a production entity, and from that sense, we can export out of India. Of course, then we need to have certain blessing from the Indian government, and then for our export customers, we always need blessing from the Swedish authorities to whom to export to, and so forth. Yes.
So you will need permissions both from the Indian and Swedish governments to export.
Because it's made in India, it will be made in India, and then of course you need to have the blessing from the Indian government or Indian export authorities as well. Yes.
Now, in terms of pitching this Carl-Gustaf project, this rocket system, the shoulder-powered rocket system to the Indian forces, what is the current stage of engagement with the Ministry of Defense and the Indian Army?
As we already have delivered the Carl-Gustaf system to the Indian Army for many years. The first system was delivered in 1976, if I recall it correct. We are in constant dialogue on various issues pertaining to this specific system with the end customer. Then, of course, we have had several interactions with the Ministry of Defense when it comes to this application for the 100% FDI. So there is an ongoing dialogue between us and the different stakeholders on the government side. And let me tell you, the Carl-Gustaf system, there are different ammunition types. There is anti-tank, anti-structure, it's anti-personnel, and you also have smoke, and you have illumination. So you can. It's a very versatile weapon, and it's used quite broadly within the Indian Armed Forces.
Would there be an Indian JV partner as well for this, or no? This will be a completely Saab-owned Indian subsidiary.
Yes, that is the plan, and that is what the FDI approval allows us to do. However, there will be an extensive supply chain built up over time to indigenize as much as possible locally here in country. But no JV partner, because that is not part of this concept. So it's but the supply chain will to a high extent be Indian going forward.
Right. What about the fighter jet program? How are you looking to address the needs of the Indian Navy, Air Force? Any fresh pitch that you've made to the Ministry of Defense?
We are also, when it comes to without going into details here, we are in continuous discussion with the Indian Air Force as well as with MOD concerning our offer for Gripen, which is in many ways a unique offer for India based on what we have done before in Brazil, for example, and based on our ability and willingness to share technology and share the ability to indigenously further develop the product, etc. So there is a continuous dialogue, and we are awaiting the next steps in that development.
Right. To also ask you about any other defense projects or collaborations that you're keen on?
Now, I am not to be too detailed there either. I mean, we have products in all domains or segments that is possible and would be interesting from an Indian perspective, be it in the land domain, in the sea domain, in the air domain, or also in civil security. for example, remote towers and those kind of products that we are working on as well. So it's a broad portfolio, and we are always looking at what is the best way to pursue this. Is it through a joint venture in some way? Is it through our own operations? Or is it through a relation where an Indian company is the prime and we are a subcontractor? So we are working various different opportunities in that sense.
Right. What is Saab's roadmap for greater localization and component procurement from India?
Well, as I more or less answered the last question, I mean, we are developing the supply chain. We have a fairly good supply chain in the aerostructure segment for our international cooperation programs with Airbus and Boeing and so forth. But we are looking to develop that even further. We are also broadening now into more electronics, avionics type of products, and I see huge potentials in growing that over time. Of course, for the Carl-Gustaf system, we need to do a little bit more, but I think to a certain extent we can also benefit from the work we have done. So I see huge potentials in the Indian supply chain to be able to satisfy our needs for the benefit of us and for the benefit of those companies as well. So there are good work being done in India by the Indian suppliers to be able to support us and other OEMs on the international market. So I'm very pleased with that.
Mats, how do you see India's defense modernization, indigenization push so far? Any key reforms that are required according to you?
Well, there is one issue that I maybe should bring up here, and that is that on one hand, the government encourage us to come here and invest and build facilities and whatnot and establish ourselves in the country. According to the DAP, and then on the automatic route, as you probably are aware, it's possible to own 74%. We have applied to have 100% ownership and have been granted that for the Carl-Gustaf facility. But in general, it is so that if you are a foreign-controlled company, which this of course is, to a certain extent, then you are not allowed to compete in certain categories of the Indian defense acquisition policy. And I think it's fair that because we are as Indian, or we will be as Indian as any other Indian company, in the sense that we are paying tax in India, we are employing Indian citizens, we will have Indians active in the organization on various levels and so forth. And I think that is one of the things that I would request the government to look into. Is there any possibilities to treat foreigners that are established in country with own operations on equal terms with local Indian companies? Because I think in general, I think competition is good, and we are not afraid of competition. And I think that will drive the capability of the Indian ecosystem even further. If we could have even playing field to work on in this environment.
Time for a